Well guys, we have one of the biggest engines produced in this box. This is going to be a fun test. We're going to put this thing through its paces. We've got some upcoming projects that are using these Swiwin 400 Pro engines. Very excited about this. Let's open this thing up. These are some pretty cool engines. They're huge, but they come with some pretty cool technology. So standard Swiwin tubing set that comes with it. We've got our standard GSU. This is kind of one of the very unique items, and it's the black box unit. So because this engine is primarily used on UAVs, this black box has different connections, fuel pumps built into it, and yeah, there's some special things going on with this. We'll cover that a little bit more. We've got a connector to hook this up to a computer. This is part of the black box setup. And we've got some special connectors. So one of these connectors is, if you're familiar with like microphone plugins, that's the kind of connectors these use. One of these is our power, and the other one is some various servo plugs. And we have the engine itself. Crazy. So there it is, the Swiwin 400, absolute monster of an engine. At sea level, at full throttle, 400 newtons equates to 88 pounds of thrust from this engine. This engine, I think, maxes out at 97 or 95,000 RPM, and just a monster. So very cool engine. Obviously very specific to certain projects, but this is the style of connector that is used throughout the engine. So let's take a closer look at some of the specifics and weigh these things out and get a closer, more detailed look at them. All right, so engine itself is 3,444 grams. And just to make the conversion for you guys, that equates to 7.59 pounds. All right, the black box is 446 grams. That's pretty close to a pound. 446 divided by 454, so 0.98 pounds. Our cable set is 143 grams. 143 divided by 454, so 0.32 pounds. So adding all those up, we've got 4,033 grams. And that equates to 8.88 pounds. So obviously this is not a normal engine that people are going to be running on a regular basis, but it's just darn cool to be able to test something like this and share it with you guys and feel the power. Maybe that's the right word, hear the power. Anyways, we're going to get this hooked up on the test stand and get everything set up, and we will run our normal tests on this engine. All right guys, so we've got the 400 mounted on the test stand. We've got a new fuel cell, lots of fuel. Now we're gonna do our standard test that we do on these turbines. So we've got 1 liter of fuel in a fuel cell here. At some point during the test, we will switch over to that fuel cell and we will run this turbine at full throttle for as long as it takes to use that fuel. So we'll find out the full throttle fuel consumption of the engine. So right now what we're doing is just running the fuel pump. This is something I do on all new setups. And we're running the fuel pump for about 5 to 10 minutes. And it's just in a closed loop between the fuel pump that is in the black box, and it's just going back into the vent line. So right now it's just cycling fuel through the fuel cell. All right, so standard practice for our test runs is what we're gonna do. I'll throw information up on the screen as we go through this so you guys will understand what we're doing. But essentially what happens is we do a startup on the engine. If it starts up great, we let the idle stabilize, then we're gonna slowly increase the throttle stick to max throttle over about a 20-second period. We're gonna let max throttle stabilize, and then we will check our acceleration on the engine. Once we've done some acceleration tests, then we'll do probably the full throttle fuel consumption test, and we'll also do a restart test. So check for the information on the bottom of the screen, which guides you through exactly the steps that we're doing. All right, so we're gonna initiate our startup sequence. Right now we are sitting at about minus 10 degrees Celsius, and we are 3,300 feet above sea level. All right, some initial thoughts on that engine run just to kind of cover, not in the video, of what I did. So because this is mainly a UAV engine, the throttle response at a normal acceleration and deceleration setting of 25 and 25 is very, very slow. So we bumped the acceleration, I think, up to 60, and the decel at the end there, we bumped it up to 50 to see if it would be applicable to put in a regular model, right? So our acceleration time got very quick. I think it was 5 or 6 seconds, and then our decel was a lot quicker as well too. So definitely suitable for putting in a very large model. That switchover, when we ran out of fuel in the fuel cell doing the 1 liter test, it sucked a ton of air into the fuel pump. I switched it over and I bumped the other camera, and it ran the entire time. That is unbelievable how much air was in that system. So that was extremely impressive. So that's a pretty normal Swiwin characteristic. That amount of air though was next level. That was crazy. So good job, Swiwin. That's a very, very impressive engine. All right, so just some details about this engine. We'll cover some of the functions and data and everything about this engine. So all of our cables and everything are locking, which is an important one. And the data cable setup, which is this guy here, has multiple ends to it. So we've got a telemetry end, a throttle end, normal PWM end, and then a switch end. So because this turbine can be used in UAV applications, it's different than our normal turbine model applications, but that's the normal plug that comes with it. Of course, with the black box, you've got all the connectors that are associated with all the different plugins. None of those connectors can be mixed up. They're all completely unique and not interchangeable. So just some of the unique features about the Swiwin 400 Pro engine. It's got the standard service life of 25 hours. One of the cool things is the maximum height. So this thing can operate at 9,000 meters of elevation. So 9,000 times 3.28 is 29,520 feet. That's crazy. So this thing can fly up with the airliners cruising up there. Cruise throttle's listed at 80 to 90%. The maximum allowable speed listed on the data sheet is 300 meters per second, which is fast. Also, this engine can be run with a 3-cell to 4-cell LiPo battery, which is also unique as well. When we did the runs and the startups and everything, the max power to the fuel pump was substantially higher than what our normal Swiwin turbine line would use. It does have one-click electronic startup. That's all part of the special cable system and special black box. The max RPM is listed as 96,000 RPM. The idle RPM is 33,000 RPM. Runs on kerosene or diesel as well. That's pretty standard with most model turbines now. Last thing we'll talk about is fuel consumption numbers. So during our test, we used 1 liter of fuel in 54.82 seconds. We'll call it 55 seconds. What that equates to is this engine uses 18.18 milliliters per second at full throttle. That means that every minute at full throttle uses 1,091 milliliters per minute of fuel. Now keep in mind that our numbers here for this engine, we got about 75, 76 pounds of thrust. We're at 3,300 feet of elevation. We normally, depending on ambient temperature, see about a 15, 20, 25% reduction in thrust on any turbine engine because of our density altitude. So this engine here, today on these running conditions, we saw a 14% reduction, which is very normal. We're a little bit lower temperature out right now, so that's pretty much to be expected. So guys, that wraps up the Swiwin 400 Pro engine. Absolute monster of an engine. Very impressive. So last thing we'll touch on here is we summarized this a little bit during the test or just after the test, but when we did the fuel consumption for the 1 liter and then did the switch over, the engine sucked in an incredible amount of air. Our whole intake line up to the pump was full of air. tons of air went into the fuel pump, into the engine, and when we got everything switched over, the engine kept running, which was insanely cool. Swiwin engines are very good with that, period, but the amount of air should have shut this thing off, and it didn't shut off. So very impressed with that. So that's everything for this engine, guys. Obviously, this is a very special engine, very special aircraft that would require an engine like this. So it's not something you run across every day, which is why I definitely jumped on the chance to put this test together and share it with you guys as well. I encourage you guys to check out the Lighter Side of RC After Dark. We do some live streams here from the shop for about 2 hours every 2 weeks-ish is the normal practice. And when you watch the After Dark and join us for that, you get to interact with us, ask questions live, as long as you're watching it live with us while we're doing it. So definitely check it out. It's kind of a cool experience, and a lot of times you're seeing things well in advance. So for example, we're doing an After Dark tonight while we're recording this video, and we'll be doing the engine test runs during that After Dark, which if you're watching the After Dark, you're seeing that weeks before this video actually comes out. We also have a podcast channel as well, the RC Air Experience. There's some links down below for that. Thank you guys so much for watching, for supporting the channel. And if you have any questions or comments, list them down below, or you can feel free to email me as well at thelightersideofrc@gmail.com. Thanks for watching, guys, and we'll see you in the next episode.